How Inquiry and Engagement Improve Student Attitude, Understanding, and Performance by Sophia Campbell. Hello, and welcome to my capstone presentation. My name is Sophia Campbell, and I am a graduate student at Piedmont University pursuing my Master's of the Arts in Secondary Science. First, I would like to thank each of my evaluators for taking the time out of your busy schedules to come and take part in this monumental event in my academic career. To Dr. Angela Humphrey Brown, thank you for your kind words, your inspiration, your support, and your hard reality checks when I needed them. You hold all of your students accountable, and you push us to be better educators each day. To Mr. Reginald Thomas, thank you for being in my life. From middle school, you have been there as a coach, a mentor, a teacher, and an additional father figure. When I came to you 4 years ago and told you that I wanted to become an educator, you told me that you would do everything that you could to help me make that happen. And you did just that. I owe my first teaching position to you. Thank you. To Dr. Nye, thank you for being an amazing teacher and mentor. I left every one of your classes with a fire in my belly and all kinds of ideas pouring out of me because of your enthusiasm and knowledge. My coworkers call me Eager Beaver because I am always trying to incorporate something you taught me in class the night before. To Dr. Winstead, thank you for your continued support, your encouraging words, and for helping me pull all of this together. I was truly terrified coming into this course, and I had no idea what to expect, and you made this process manageable and rewarding. To all of the faculty and staff at Piedmont University, thank you. My journey to becoming an educator is quite different than most. I attended Savannah State University to major in biology with a plan to attend physical therapy school after graduation. Instead, I said I needed a break from school after graduation, and I was offered a job at an environmental lab. I mean, who really gets a job in their field right after graduation? I began as an entry-level lab technician and worked my way up to management. After 10 years, I realized that sitting in a lab coat behind a machine that did not talk back was not what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I packed up my life in Savannah and I moved back home to Athens, where I began attending Athens Technical College to pursue nursing. But God had a different plan. I was sitting in my sociology class one day and had an epiphany. I don't have the stomach for nursing, and maybe I should give teaching a chance. Our youth need educators who care about their overall development, not just their educations, and I wanted to help. A month later, I attended a job fair for Clark County School District, and I was offered 3 job opportunities without any background in education. It was definitely a sign. I took a teaching job at my alma mater, Clark Central High School here in Athens, Georgia, as a 9th grade biology teacher, and it has proven to be one of the best decisions I have ever made in my life. I love teaching and helping students see the best in themselves. I decided to attend Piedmont University to equip me with the tools and skills needed to become an effective educator. So, creating these last graduate assignments is bittersweet, but it is also the beginning of an amazing journey that I have the honor of taking. I chose to research the effects of inquiry and engagement on student attitude, student understanding, and student performance. These are 2 strategies that contribute to the learning in my classroom. Philosopher John Dewey believed that successful learning takes place in the context of the learner's actual life experiences. Actual life experiences. And that content must be presented so that students can discover, explore, and learn through doing the science. I pull students into contact through relatable occurrences and experiences that spark intrigue, which makes them want to explore and learn. Inquiry allows students to develop knowledge and understanding of scientific ideas using several skills: making observations, using questioning, assessing relevant information, planning, conducting experiments, and analyzing those results to make logical explanations. With inquiry, students are in control of their learning. It is hands-on and guided by their own curiosity and wonder. Knowledge acquired through inquiry means more to students because they are in it. They can see it, they can touch it, and they have a different type of learning experience because they develop conclusions by making mistakes, then reflecting on those mistakes and tweaking their processes and methods based on these findings. Inquiry experiences must be age appropriate and differentiated so that students understand what it is that they are expected to learn and that they can understand what it is that they should take away from these experiences. Inquiry is student-centered, and it allows student autonomy in their learning with support and guidance from the instructor. Inquiry-based instruction allows students a say-so in how they experience content and how they obtain their knowledge. For inquiry or any other strategy to work for me and my students, there are certain conditions and relationships that must first be created to support learning and meaningful experiences for all parties involved. With that being said, my classroom will forever be a place where students receive support, guidance, and encouragement. I believe that all students can learn, no matter what their level of ability. It is all about how content and experiences are presented to them and the belief that they can be successful. I began building relationships with my students from day one, finding out what interests them, what their backgrounds are personally and academically, helped me provide instruction that best supports the learning of every student. I am my students' biggest cheerleader, and in my classroom, success is attainable and it is praised, no matter how small. Respect is a major contributor to the culture of my classroom. Students know that I'm going to give them respect as young adults, and it is willingly returned because of that. Students also know that with that respect comes accountability and responsibility for their actions and any consequences that those actions warrant. In my classroom, we are a family. I call them my children and I treat them as such. I listen to them individually and collectively. I ask questions. I poll how they are feeling about content and strategies that I use. If we can agree that something is not working for them or me, we figure out something better. Sometimes we may realize this in the middle of a lesson, that the approach is not working in its delivery or its process, then we may have to change that up. Whatever it is that I have to do to make sure that my students are learning the information and mastering the content. Again, my relationships with my students allow me to assess when they are uncomfortable in their learning, which can hinder the acquisition of the knowledge and ruin the entire experience. I chose to create this word cloud that includes excerpts from my thoughts and my research on strategies of inquiry and active learning. The words are sized based on the frequency that they appear in the selections, meaning those that are larger show up more often, and those that are smaller don't show up as often, but they are repeated. To list a few of these things: understanding, information, learning, students. There's always learning in my classrooms. It is student-centered. It is age-appropriate. We question things in my class. It's different. They're complex. We analyze. We assess. We participate. We talk. That is one of the bases of every single class that I teach. We have discussions. I'm not so big on the databases where students have to just individually type their answers in. I think I've built a culture in my classroom where students are comfortable sharing and comfortable talking to me, and we talk through their understanding and acquisition of learning. It is a constant discussion in my classroom. Um, I love to reference old material and always bring it back and show them how everything is related. I'm like, you remember when we learned about this in Unit 1 and Unit 2? We're in Unit 5 and it's showing up again. Oh my God, do you see that? I get really excited about that, but that's what I've been trying to teach them since day one is that all of these things are interconnected. And if you are able to understand one thing, then it's just a process. We're building a castle with these blocks. It is important for students to be involved in their learning, and these experiences can be enriched through engagement with peers. I believe that students take more away from shared experiences where they can question, share with, aid, and support each other. We all learn better through active and situated learning environments. Much of my class instruction is based on student exploration and relatability. Content is presented through relative events, experiences, and prior knowledge. It is rough being a science teacher and always having to explain to students why they must learn this information and how they will use it in their real lives and when they're going to use it in their real lives. I thrive on searching for the perfect opportunities to show them just that, how and where they will use this knowledge. I choose lessons that are relatable to the students' cultures, experiences, ages, community, and current events that can help them find interest in and the importance of the material that they learn, and they love to take it home and share it with their families. My ideal learning environment includes interaction, engagement, questioning, reasoning, and most of all, learning and knowledge retention. Teach them to learn so that they understand. If a student can explain a process, a method, or a standard to me in terms that they understand, then I have succeeded in my job. I encourage my students to think critically and to reflect on their thinking. When they develop these skills, which sometimes we must teach them, they become valuable assets that can be used in all areas of their lives. Through inquiry, students are required to use both critical thinking and metacognition to develop conclusions and an understanding of the content. So, how does this look in my classroom? This is Candy Cladistics. It's an inquiry activity that I used to close up the unit on classification of organisms. I'll open this up and show it to you guys. So I chose this activity to help students solidify their understanding of cladistics. Cladistics is a method of classifying organisms into clades and identifying common ancestors based on derived traits, which are those traits that did not belong to the organism prior. In this activity, students were given 4 different types of candy: Sour Patch Kids, Mike and Ike's, Gobstoppers, and Skittles, and 4 different traits to use to separate each candy. Are they colorful? Are they smooth? Are they round? And do they have lettering? This first portion was to help students set up and understand the way cladistics works. There are analysis questions that students were asked to answer following each task. So on this portion, students were given the candies and were told to observe whether or not they had these 4 selected traits. If they had those traits, then they were to put an X up under that column beside the candy. Some of the analysis questions were just asking them to read the cladogram. So this lets me know that they can analyze what they are looking at. Students had to tell me and be able to, students had to be able to tell me that if a trait showed up prior to an organism, that it meant that they had that trait. And if a trait showed up after, it meant that they did not have that trait. And that is how we separate and generate these cladograms. Misconceptions are also addressed with students who are struggling after we get to this point. For the second portion of this activity, students were required to again observe their candies and now choose 4 of their own traits that they could use to separate them. not using those that we had given them before. And then they had to create or generate a cladogram using these traits. This task was also followed up by analysis questions, and I also asked several groups to come up to the board and create their cladogram using the traits that their group had chosen. The students came up with some very interesting trait choices, and each group now had different cladograms. During the follow-up discussion, since everybody's cladogram was now different, they were all able to agree that each group was correct in their classifications, even though some were different. No one was wrong and no one was right. Well, no one was wrong, everyone was right. This helped them to understand the fact that cladistics, due to its use of derived traits, can vary depending on the traits chosen. So how did they do? My students did very well with this activity. At the conclusion of the activity and the lesson, everyone had a full understanding of classification using cladistics and were able to distinguish between the development of cladograms using derived traits and phylogenetic trees using evolutionary evidence, a topic which we had covered the day prior. They also enjoyed eating the candy at the end. An engagement activity that I use quite often in my class is a review round robin. To prepare for this activity, I go through the assessment and identify topics that students should make sure that they understand. I write each of these topics on a sticky note and attach it to a dry erase board. Then I separate students based on their levels of mastery. I try to make sure there's at least 1 to 2 students in each group who have a pretty good grasp on the concept so that they can help support those of their peers who may be struggling. The students are then asked to bring their notebooks and at least 1 laptop to sit with their groups. Each group is then given a dry erase board with several markers. Students are then tasked with creating 3 to 5 review questions based on their designated topic for their peers to answer during a round-robin portion of the activity. As students are brainstorming, I circulate the room to monitor their progress and their learning. I ask students questions to get them to think about the questions that they are creating. Some may need some work, some may be great, and sometimes I challenge students to create choices that are more rigorous. Once students have created the task of generating questions, each group circulates the room, going to each station and answering the questions of their peers on the different topics. While this is happening, I am again circulating the room to monitor student learning. While talking with students, if I receive a question that I feel the whole class can benefit from, I am sure to answer it out loud for everyone to hear. This activity allows for collaboration, recall, and student reflection. When a student came across a question that they could not answer correctly, this was an indicator to them that it may be a topic that they should spend a little more time studying. After each group has rotated to each station, we close out the class with a final discussion where I address most missed questions or briefly review a topic before dismissal. Does it work? This was a video displaying my students actually in this activity, and I love to hear the conversations going on when we are doing these round robins, because you'll hear students correcting each other, you'll hear them explaining processes in more details, or if they see that their peers may not understand something, they are actively trying to help each other out. I have used this activity to prepare for several assessments, and students have stated that they truly enjoy it. They can review the material when having to create questions for the designated topic and by answering the questions of their peers. Students can discuss material with their groups and reference related activities that we've completed in class related to each topic. Students are also able to help their peers who may not understand a topic that they have a better grasp of. It is amazing to see the interaction, encouragement, and the teaching that goes on during this activity. Educators must use an engaging and meaningful curriculum to encourage students to participate and be motivated to learn. Engaging inquiry experiences motivate students to choose to apply content outside of the classroom, creating a continuum of motivation, interest, and learning. Here are a few of the resources that I used for my presentation. I hope you enjoy the other elements of my capstone project. And again, thank you. I look forward to our Q&A session on November 30th at 4 o'clock p.m.